So this is something that comes up quite often. New members of the family, something to be aware of. OGs in the family, something to be aware of. Label lunacy. So John says, the other day I grabbed a bottle of flavored water from a vending machine because it said it had 10 calories and 2.5 carbs seemed reasonable to him, even in a deficit, which is where John is right now. He said, as I went to open the bottle, however, I noticed the other side and the label said it had 12 grams of carbs. And he says, I understand the games companies play with nutrition rules because they do. Labeling has a lot of different rules they can use to fudge the numbers, between rounding, between how they label, between how they classify servings and all this stuff. He said, but I'm wondering if there are rules of thumb that you follow when it comes to the number, when it comes to which number trumps which. In other words, is it more likely that the calorie number is correct and the games are being played with the macros? Or is it more likely the macros are correct and the funny math is being done with the calories?
Okay, so I'm assuming the front of the bottle said 2.5 grams of carbs, and then you turned around the nutrition label and it said 12.
I actually have the label.
Perfect.
Right here.
Which you can't see. So.
Which you can't see. I mean,
that is the case, though.
You can see it's blurry if I bring it out 12, here and you have great eyes.
So it says 12 grams of carbs, 10 calories.
12
that
grams of carbs,
a red flag.
10 calories, 1 sugar. So we got a lot of weird stuff on this particular label. So we'll talk about this label and then we'll talk generalities too. He said, I was willing to give up the 2.5. He was willing to invest the 10 calories. He said, but not 12 grams, which by the math would normally be 48 if it was 12 normal grams of carbs. I won't be able to be on the live tonight, but if you cover this, oh wait, why am I talking about that? He's just letting us know that he's looking forward to the answer. So there's a couple things to unpack here. And I don't even know where to begin. Labels fudge things, 100% correct. Now, is it more likely that the calories are accurate and the macros are being fudged, or is it more accurate the macros are accurate and the calories are being fudged? And that's going to be a big it depends. In this scenario right here, we can already see some weird stuff. Now, under the total carbohydrate, okay, first and foremost, I'm going to answer something different because I want there to be something in front of this that all the fam locks into. When you said, is there a rule of thumb that you follow? I'm assuming you're talking to me.
You're talking to me?
The rule of thumb that I follow is I don't mess around with faulty, funky, labeled food sources. I eat the foods I want. I count all the carbs on the label. I add them up and I make the decision based on that information as to whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze, or in this case, the water is worth the calories. And the reason for that for me is simple. It's because the more we try to game the system, the more we try to hunt down foods that can have these kind of shady connotations about them, not necessarily this one in particular, but with the rounding and with the net carb funky math and with the sugar alcohols and with the very tiny servings that equal 0 calories, but the whole jar clearly has calories. The more we try to game that system, the more we end up cheating ourselves. And so for me, it's about, let me eat the foods that I actually enjoy, that I actually want enough to make work, and not try to game the system so much. So that's my rule of thumb. Now, what I would do in this scenario totally depends, right? You know what I told you, and you know where I stood with that. But for everyone else involved here, looking at this particular product, now understanding that when we talk about 4 calories per grams of protein, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate, and 9 calories per gram of fat, we are literally talking about a scientifically accepted average. It is an average of many, many, many sources of carbohydrates, and many, many sources of protein, and many, many sources of fat. It is designed so you can conveniently talk in terms without 7 decimal places behind them. It's designed to be a good scientifically accepted average, but at the end of the day, it's still an average. So The calorie count, if they set that particular food source off inside of a bomb calorimeter, and that is the amount of energy it gave off, that calorie count is correct, even if the macros don't add up. So what are we talking about there? Well, that's not likely going to be a huge discrepancy. That's likely going to be within an accepted average. 10 calories, 15 calories, 17 calories, all depending on the calorie amount in the serving side and the number of macronutrients. So normally, if the calories and the macros don't add up, it's not a big deal. We tell you to pick a method and stick with it. Normally, for most people, it's going to be the macros. This particular one shows you just how much buffoonery is afoot, right? We're looking at this, and we've got a label that says 10 calories, which, as John pointed out, would be 2.5 grams of carbs. But we got a label that says 12 total carbs. Then underneath that label, it says 1 gram of sugar, and then it says 10 grams of erythritol, which would be 11 grams of carbs.
So we're still missing one.
Which means another gram of carbs is missing somewhere that didn't get tracked. And it's water with 4% juice. Not going to be many natural sugars in there. So now we're looking at, well, it's not 12, but it's not 1. But there's 10 grams of erythritol. But if we factor 0.25 calories per gram of erythritol, well, now our numbers are still kind of funky.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of massaging going on in this item, which just makes it suspect to me, which makes me go, why can't I just bring some Crystal Light and dump it in some water? That's what I do, right? So in this particular instance, grabbed it from a vending machine, whatever, do what you want to do. I just wouldn't use this product again, right? Yeah. And the problem is when you go and you search up calories and erythritol, well, you get varying opinions. You get 0 calories per serving, or you get so much per teaspoon, or you get 0.25 calories per gram. Well, guys, if you're taking 100 grams of erythritol in, 1, good luck with the bubble guts.
Yeah.
But 2, that's going to add up to some calories. So the problem is with a lot of these products is not necessarily using them as intended. In this situation, I'm probably going to say, knowing that erythritol is 0.25 calories per gram, knowing that they've listed 1 sugar, and knowing that there's a secondary carbohydrate floating around, 10 calories is probably the amount of energy in the thing. But that's this one particular product being able to go through that math. When they do net carbs and they discount all grams of fiber without disclosing whether it's soluble or insoluble, you don't know how many calories you're going to factor in from that. So why are we playing the game? Why wouldn't we just find a food source we enjoy or eat it as intended? You drink a whole bottle of Walden Farm syrup, and I'm telling you guys, there's calories in there, despite how bad your belly's going to feel, right? So we just want to make sure that we're making the choices we really want to make.
This is where you have a choice, too, because Jonathan in his head will factor that it's erythritol and that there is a certain amount he's comfortable accepting per gram for carbs from that sugar alcohol. For me, my choice is going to be track the 12 carbs. I got to be honest. I am always an overestimator. I am also a smaller person than Jonathan. My calorie range is smaller than Jonathan, and I have a little less room for error. I will always track the 12 grams of carbs. So this is where you get to make a decision. Is it worth it to you to do the math and call it 10 calories? Are you concerned with it and you want to call it the full 48 calories? And then if you look up erythritol, there's a whole giant range of what you could use. It gets really fuzzy.
And the thing is when I see a label like that, yeah, I could calculate it. I'm just not going to drink it.
Yeah.
Like, that's me. Anne's going to count it as all 12. Yeah. I roll with all carbs matter. Whatever the total carb says on the label, that's what I count when I track my intake. I would rather, where I'm at, err on the side of caution than estimate erroneously low and make that my habit. Because what if I do that every day? And I estimate low every day because I'm franking food and everything and I want to game the system. And the next thing you know, I'm wondering why I'm not making progress because I'm following my plan 100%, but the progress isn't coming. I'd rather just not play that game. And I know John wasn't playing a game. John was thirsty.
Yeah.
And that label took them by surprise because the front says one thing, the back says another. And guys, you're just going to have to pick away and stick with it.
This is something I do on the regular every week. So I eat no-cal bars. They are actually vegan protein bars. I don't eat them because of that. I eat them because of the fiber in them. They've got a massive amount of fiber because they're a plant-based protein bar. And I would rather eat the bar than eat 6 plates of veggies. So I work these bars in. However, the calories on the bars take the fiber out of the carbohydrate count. When I log them, I log all the carbs. Every time. Makes them more calories than the bar says. That choice is up to you. But if you ride that line and you continue to go, oh, those low carb, net carb tortillas or zero this and zero that, you're still getting calories. We just don't know how many. And over time, it could catch up to you.
Yeah. So my estimation here, my thing here is, again, man, figure out what matters to you. Is a whatever this is, vitamin water, smart water, flavored water, is that going to be your barrier to progress? No, probably not. But if that's like a slippery slope for you to start trying to find every loophole you can in your tracking, just understand that most every time you try to game the system, you just end up trying to cheat yourself. So I'm not a fan of these labeling tactics. I'm not a fan of just discounting caloric value and things. Erythritol has very much been studied and estimated to be at that level. I just wish the label was a little bit more clear before I'm going to make a decision on this. So, you can try to roll the dice, or you can adopt the blanket all carbs matter. That is a lot easier for me to make that call when it comes to focusing on everyone, when it comes to actual food sources, because it's generally not a sugar alcohol that's factoring in. It's generally going to be fiber they're trying to totally subtract. And I'm just not a huge fan of. Well, I know that fiber does indeed have calories. Your body does absorb them, and it's a lot dependent on the individual, on the type of fiber, on your actual gut microbiome and how much they absorb and off gas.
It's basically something that is impossible to test for you personally.
Right. So I just count them. And so far, 9 years later, it's been a good strategy for me. I'm just a little bit protective of my progress. So that's where I roll with that.